tonight, and then some showers late. Otherwise, I don't see a lot during the day. A few, but not very many. Tomorrow, a couple of showers early, then partly sunny skies and drying out as the day goes on. I'm KIRO 7 Pinpoint meteorologist Nick Allard.
It is partly sunny and 60 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Ursula Royteen.
Listen live at mynorthwest.com. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
I said it on yesterday's show, and after all of the research that I've been doing the last 21 hours, it certainly appears that we can now directly tie the assault of a rape victim to Jay Inslee and Bob Ferguson. Very, very directly. Welcome to the big show. Welcome to the Carter Subaru studio. We're also streaming on Facebook Live. This is the most damning indictment yet of sanctuary state policy that was signed a few weeks ago. And by the way, I've talked to sheriffs in Spokane County and elsewhere that will not honor the sanctuary policy, because they have taken an oath to defend the United States Constitution. And they will not uphold a sanctuary policy that is so clearly unconstitutional and that does not allow law enforcement to work with federal agencies. And now, because of this, it appears that a rape victim has been much further victimized by Jay Inslee, Bob Ferguson, Dow Constantine, Jenny Durkin, all of the politicians who push for this sanctuary policy. It is an absolutely infuriating story, and it is our big lead.
The Big Lead. Top story.
Well, we told you a lot about this story yesterday. It's incredibly sad. A 32-year-old woman lives down in White Center. She has some paralysis in her legs and is confined to a wheelchair. She also has a 2-year-old little boy. And a 35-year-old man imposed himself into her life. Francisco Carranza Ramirez. He went over to the woman's apartment, forced his way in. This woman went into what moms do. She didn't want her little 2-year-old boy to be hurt by this man who, according to court documents, raped her. And then he returned 3 days later, raped her again. When he went before a judge, they charged him only with third-degree rape, which is analogous to date rape. And this woman says this was absolutely nothing like date rape. This was a forcible penetration. But given that we play human roulette here, they decided to just let the guy go with time already served. But in a decision that shows the outrage of sanctuary, the judge said, I will release you as long as you agree to get yourself down to California and then cross the border into your native Mexico. Now, is he an illegal? Nobody will say, of course, because nobody's allowed to ask. I asked the King County Sheriff's Office that question yesterday. They said, we're not allowed to ask. It's part of the effort to shield from the public the horrible consequences of sanctuary. But I think that it is fair to extrapolate that this guy, since he was being sent back to his native Mexico as a condition of his release, that he was an illegal, is an illegal. Well, guess what? The accused rapist apparently wasn't an honorable person. I know that's shocking to all of our politicians and judges that an alleged rapist would not be honorable. But it appears that despite the judge telling this guy to go back to Mexico, he didn't. So you know what he did? after he got released from jail for the rapes. He was sentenced to 12 months, but was released from jail the very same day. They said, you've already been behind bars 9 months since we arrested you, so we're just going to give you time already served. Go and be on your way. But again, that's when the judge said, but you got to go back to Mexico. 2 days after his release from jail, 2 days, he went back to his rape victim's apartment. According to charging papers, she had a protection order against him, but she was brutally attacked. She was pushed out of her wheelchair. She was being strangled when some passersby intervened and the man ran off. And so 35-year-old Francisco Carranza Ramirez remains at large. They believe he may still be in the White Center area, down in the South End. Hey, Jay Inslee, Bob Ferguson, Dow Constantine, Jenny Durkin. If that judge could have contacted federal immigration authorities, and instead of asking, hey, would you please go back to Mexico? Because we don't want you raping people up here anymore. Please, pretty please, just go on your own. And he said, yes, I will. To all of our politicians, if that judge could have contacted federal immigration authorities, assuming what none of you will confirm for me, assuming that he's here illegally, they could have turned him over to ICE, and ICE could have taken him to the federal detention center in Tacoma until they could fly him back to Mexico. And this wheelchair-bound young mother wouldn't have had to have faced her rapist as he was assaulting her yet again. I will again ask the question to Inslee and Bob Ferguson and Dow Constantine and Jenny Durkin. How in the world can you look yourselves in the mirror? How can you stand the sight of yourself when you know that this political game you play of sanctuary so that you can galvanize a little bit more money and power, that it further terrorizes a young woman who's already been terrorized? How do you not retch at the sight of yourself in the mirror? We are not naming the rape victim. She may be joining us a little bit later this afternoon. She talked with our news partners at KIRO 7.
Prosecutors had charged him appropriately, and the judge had kept him locked up. Like, he wouldn't have even had the chance to do this.
And she couldn't believe when she heard that he was being released and just being trusted to go back to Mexico.
I went out of the courtroom, just hysterically crying.
And I was first tipped off on this story by David Rose at Q13 News, and Q13 talked to the victim as well.
From where I got hit, it's from here, I have some pretty big scratches on my back and some on my arms too, just from trying to defend myself. I thought he was going to kill me.
You know what? Those scratches, those blows, they might as well have been delivered by Inslee and Bob Ferguson and Dow Constantine and Jenny Durkin. Because they could have stopped this. And they could have stopped this. And so this poor woman,
I think he could. I think that...
she's afraid that he's going to attack her again now.
I think he could. I think that if he found, a vulnerable person especially, I think he's a predator.
Yeah, but we can't call ICE, though. We're a sanctuary state. We got to protect him. We've got to throw our young moms, our wheelchair-bound moms, to the wolves. And we got to protect the illegals. Am I cynical about politics? You dang well better believe I am. Because it's filled with people who nauseate me. Next up, in the big lead.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to love inventing dice games, sports dice games. I got this one, it was a Sports Illustrated baseball dice game. I've talked about it before, where you got to see, it was the 1971 season, and you got to manage whatever team you wanted. So I always was Earl Weaver, managing the Baltimore Orioles. You set the lineup. The other team had a pitcher. You could play it solo. And you roll the dice to determine what the pitcher does. And if the pitcher doesn't get either a strikeout or walk, then you roll the dice to see what the batter does. I loved those games. So I would invent basketball dice games and horse racing dice games, football based on what the offense and the defense called, and I had a big grid, and you'd roll the dice, and I'd play that with my friends. That's what I wanted to be for when I was 10 years old, was a dice board game inventor. So I'm still trying to scratch that itch a little bit. And so I've come up with a new one. It's called the Liberal Seattle Politician How to Talk Dice Game. You see, Jenny Durkin, she was giving away some beautiful heritage land, Fort Lawton, right next to Discovery Park. She's giving that away to the homelessness industrial complex. So the public loses and the developers will win as they build incredibly overpriced homeless housing on prime land. It's insane. It's all insane. But here's what I asked her to do, though, because I needed somebody to beta test my new Seattle liberal talking dice game. And so when Jenny Durkin, when she had her press conference yesterday, I gave her these special dice that I invented. And I asked her, whatever comes up on the dice, will you work it into the next line of your speech? And surprisingly, because she doesn't seem to have a lot of affection and affinity for me, but surprisingly, she said, for you, Dori, anything. And so from the press conference yesterday, it came up equity, that role.
I have seen changes in Seattle that are enormous. But the thing that sets us apart as a city is we have been committed to certain ideals and principles. And one of those principles is equity and making sure we take care of each other and our neighbors. We can't do that without changing. Oh, that was a one-pointer for Jenny. And let's try it. Want to try again? Let's see if she can keep going here. A two-word one. Amazing people. You think you can do that one, Jenny? Who is a Daybreak star now and literally is the person who gets to oversee some of those amazing programs started years ago. Amazing programs. That's close. I'll give you 1 point there. Okay, try one more time. But in the 1970s, for those... You got to roll the dice first. Jenny, you got to roll the dice first. Woo-hoo-hoo! This is the Seattle Liberal Yahtzee equivalency. Can you get all three, inclusive, welcoming, and diversity in one line? That's going to be tough. Inclusive, welcoming, and diversity. But in the 1970s, for those who had a vision of a Seattle that was more inclusive, more welcoming, and demanded that we live up to our ideas of equity. Woo! It's not bad. It's not bad. Okay. Let's see. Want to try again, Jenny? Let's try one more time. This is a tough one.
Standing on the shoulder. Standing on the shoulder. How do you work that in?
We're standing on the shoulders of people who had the vision long before us to know that we had to open this city and everywhere we could to make it open and for all people in this community.
Well, she got that. Okay, let's play one more here. Uh-oh. Standing on the shoulder again. That's going to be tough back to back.
So I could not be more pleased to be able to be the person who signs into law, but know that I stand on the shoulders of efforts that have happened, not just for the last 15 years.
Well, I tell you what, Jenny Durkin, she is good at the Seattle Liberal How to Speak dice game. I'll see if I can come up with some more specialized dice. It took me, it was very hard because I had to write real tiny on those blank cubes there, but we'll try to stay on top of that because she is good at it. I tell you what. Next up in the big lead.
The Big Lead. Update.
We told you about that drag queen story time. Your tax dollars at work at the Des Moines King County Library. And this week's drag queen reading to the little preschoolers was a guy named Cookie Couture.
I'm proud of who I am, I'm proud of what I'm doing, and I'm proud of everybody that came out today.
And by the way, oh, shoot. I don't like offending if you're a listener, but if you're a parent who takes your kid to this, I question your parenting.
We support Drag Queen Story Hour. We want it to keep happening in our community, and we know how important it is, especially during Pride Month.
How important it is. How it's so important to have drag queens reading to kids. And they'll tell you something else. This dopey King County councilman, Dave Upthegrove, a concerned parent wrote to him and said, really? We spend hundreds of dollars a year on our property tax bill, and some of it goes to drag queen story time. And he wrote back, the snottiest, man, our civic leaders. This is a King County councilman. And he writes back the snottiest note to this concerned parent. Thank you for your message expressing your desire for the public library system to conform to your personal moral beliefs and not allow a program with which you disagree. If you are offended by gasp, and he actually wrote out the word gasp. If you are offended by gasp drag queens, then the answer is simple. Don't attend the event. Problem solved. Why try to impose your morality on every other family in the county? Because, knucklehead, you make us pay tax dollars for the libraries. You've imposed your morality on every family that pays tax dollars and thinks that it's a stupid idea to have drag queens reading to the kids. And then his last line. Oh, and the King County Council has nothing to do with the Seattle Public Libraries, but I appreciated the opportunity to share my thoughts in return. Yeah, this is a King County library. Moron. Dave Upthegrove. Snotty, entitled. But that's the way the ruling class treats their people. And that is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
We're going to check the news for you. And then a story I've been covering a lot. This ridiculous University of Washington study that said how many people in Seattle are going to die in a heat wave in the year 2100. I talked to one of the authors of the study yesterday. I'll talk to another skeptic